I'm Ciaran Warner. This is volume 2 of supporting evidence for the Texas Behavioral Health Executive Council's investigation into Linda Good McGillis.
Do I know why I feel fear and nervous is to have a one-on-one session with you, Linda? Absolutely. You're scared of yourself, facing yourself, honey. One thing about me, guys, is I'm holographic. I keep saying it, but people keep making me human. I will always be the dark mirror that you don't like. I'll tell you that straight up. Your will becomes my will. Your intention becomes mine. Your energy becomes mine. And one thing with me is I will always become that dark mirror that triggers every bit of your wounding, your judgment, and more importantly, your belief systems with it.
So here's a little bit about what the scam is and how it works, where it came from. So Linda got caught stealing money from the gas station that she worked at. She ended up homeless. She was doing drugs. She lost her teeth. She had this traumatic experience in Montana, and she ended up like living in a van and getting on disability. I assume because of some kind of mental health diagnosis.
And so, what worked for me when I spent the 40 days and 40 nights at a crisis home and spent all my time out in nature, my spirit guides came to me, and they're the ones who taught me how to breathe. They taught me how to meditate. I had angels, I had Jesus as real as you and me sit next to me in my van in the passenger seat. That's how I started out. Well, I was not able to go into typical meditation fashion, if you will. And so, anyway, I was guided to stare at the flame of a candle.
And at this time, she's seeing this guy named Mark Allen McNeely, and he's also on disability, and he knows ways to make some extra money on the side because you can hardly live on just disability alone. And he's got sort of tricks that you can do on the internet. If they go to a certain account, you don't have to, if you don't sign a W, you can collect that money. The government doesn't really know about it, and you can have an extra source of income. And his ideas for this, the PG version of why he's in federal prison at Segoville, is that these ideas of his to raise money on the internet were morally bankrupt.
I believe what ended up happening actually is that he was lying to me, and he had somehow connected with Linda and ended up living with her. So I want to say that, we were very back and forth because he kept saying he'd go get help. And, this was before I even knew about any of his online activities. What he told me was that he was, playing Chris Hansen, basically, that he was trying to catch predators because he always played the role of being very offended by child predators. So, at that point we weren't together. I had no reason not to believe him. You know what I mean?
Mark McNeely has been a negative influence on Linda since they met back in 2012, and he still sort of calls the shots on what she does with something like Profundity Yours. So he is an important character in the story. And something we'll hear about soon is that Linda has a photographic memory. So she's able to take all this stuff from McNeely's ex-wife, sort of take on her persona, and very quickly develop this Facebook page. This whole new age thing came out of nowhere, and it's always been a cloak because the idea was to get people to do, readings with Linda, and they'd pay $30 or something like that. So Linda goes from Spokane, Washington to Kempner, Texas. She ends up in Texas in 2016. and she has nothing. She's homeless. Her sister pays a deposit on this trailer park, or a house in a trailer park, so that Linda can survive, and pays her phone bill so that she can still contact Linda. And in this trailer park, Linda's got a cell phone and an internet connection and this Facebook page where she is this new age guru, but it's not making money. People aren't signing up for her readings. So she starts making these videos. And when she's making these videos, she's a traumatized person. And she starts talking about her trauma and mixing it with new age. And then the stuff starts getting popular. And she starts finding other people who would have their own trauma, who see what she's doing, and this is like heroic. And she starts getting a little bit more work, but the stuff, like, she can only charge so much for it. And I think this is, I mean, nobody would be able to tell you this but Linda, but it seems to me that the scam starts at a point where Linda realizes she can charge more money for the sessions if she tells a story about being a licensed psychologist. Like, hey, I know this new age stuff and it's actually better than traditional therapy. And by the way, I am a therapist, was a therapist, like, I know what I'm doing, and now my sessions cost $100.
Yeah.
But many people don't know how to give either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because we give good
or
conditions.
And define and make giving conditional.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly.
There are more
Yeah.
people that will go and spend $100 on a haircut
Mm-hmm.
or on a psychic reading than give to something that helps another.
Mm.
Yeah.
And there's more people that will go out there and buy alcohol for their boyfriends and then come to me and say, I can't afford a session, as if I'm supposed to just,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Give it away. Yeah.
And trust me, I do just as much free work
Mm-hmm.
as I ask for a donation for sessions or anything else.
And it's for her time.
The money that Linda is making from therapy is a huge factor, but there are a ton of terrible ingredients from this point before the nonprofit was started. I mean, the whole thing is a workaround to make money while being on Social Security. The people that Linda targets have unresolved trauma that makes them vulnerable to a scam like this too. I mean, that's really important, is how vulnerable Linda's clients are. She says she was a therapist. She was never a therapist. And she does this to get people's trust and to take their money. A big red flag is the way that Linda deals with her own trauma, because it is unhealthy. And you have to imagine that her followers aspire to this.
Instead of teaching you guys about occult, they shortened it, enslaved you through language, and put it to cult, and now it's evil. Dana, where you say my sister is currently in jail for a murder threat against me. Why did you threaten yourself with murder, Dana? The horror of memory. The horror of memory. I'm going to share something very personal with you that I have shared to very few. Even though I'm a walk-in, and my vessel, Linda, was in a relationship before I walked in. And one thing, being a walk-in, we have to adapt as much as we can to fit in without creating a whole lot of disturbance to the vessel's reality that we come in, even though we are a whole different consciousness to the body, if you will. And one of the things I've had to adapt to in Linda's life, because I've come into her body once she left the body, is adapting to her life. Now, her fiance is still my fiance, even though a walk-in occurred for him 2 years after my walk-in occurred. And the relationship is built from the soul aspect of the walk-in consciousnesses rather than the human avatars. However, even though my fiance had a walk-in experience, is a higher consciousness, the vessel's story is playing out, and he's in federal prison for 12 years. But truly, when you understand that there is only consciousness and it's a sentient being, if we're bringing it to life through each of us, you'll stop raping yourselves. My rape, and yes, I'm owning it, was the greatest miracle that ever occurred to me. June 18th, 2013, my vessel went through a very brutal rape. Can somebody tell me why that is not love, even though it was the most miraculous loving experience I ever went through after I got through the experience and seen what was behind it?
In this section, we're going to hear from Natasha Weeks.
Natasha fell into her own loop and chose to demonize me instead of looking at the fear she had within.
And she was number 2 in command. And what's really important about Natasha is that she set up the nonprofit, Profundity Yours LLC. It was converted into a nonprofit after a month of existence and ended this year. And this is really critical to this fraud case, I believe, is the nonprofit. Before I play the circumstances of how Profundity got started, I want to hear something from Natasha that kind of explains why Linda is able to pass herself off as a psychologist. And this is the same reason Linda can absorb all this numerology and religion. It's her incredible memory.
So the thing with Linda, and this took me being her personal assistant, being next to her 24/7 to understand how she works. So she has a photographic memory.
I've heard that before, actually.
Yes. Yeah. I've been the one to tell people this for years. So she never, if you go near her, she has a whole library of books, but nobody's allowed to read those books. And she tells everybody, I've never read a single one of these books. My followers send them to me, but I've written them all. And you're like, oh, okay. So when she had me start to document some of her and like record some of her writings and her booklets, I started to like take these books. I would just take them and read them. So I read loads of books in her library. And then I started to realize that she would just repeat whatever she read in these books.
Uh-huh.
And she would repeat, she could repeat things word for word from the book. And, she would call people together to say, that, I've had this new, now it makes me laugh. So you have so many things working against you.
Uh-huh.
And she knows how to use them all.
Well,
she
and
knows
that's
she
a
studied
classic
psychology.
There's a lot of like really classic cult stuff that Linda does. It's almost like she like read a book on how to be a cult leader or learned it from Mark or something.
Ding, ding, ding. She has loads of books on human psychology, the brain. She's read all of this. She knows what she's doing. And she was in a psychiatric hospital, right?
No.
Yeah.
Linda knows a lot about psychology. She knows about psychological concepts. Like that's part of the reason the system works the way it works. You have to think about this from the perspective of a member, because Linda can go on about psychological concepts that most people are familiar with. And it's the kind of thing where maybe she is a psychologist. Now, Linda does not say the things a trained psychologist would say, but I don't think that's ignorance. I think it's more like she knows the concepts and bends them to keep the train running on schedule.
That's why you have schizophrenia, depression, bipolarism, schizoaffective. That's why you guys are told you're crazy, because your soul has 144 personalities. And when you guys start hearing the voices, or you start connecting to angels, or this, that, or the other, you're told you're crazy. All to keep you down.
One of the reasons I believed that there was some funny business from the start is that in 2022, you have these people all living in a trailer park, and then all of a sudden there's this $1.3 million ranch in Marietta, and they buy the only restaurant. Like, what were they doing living in a trailer park before that? A bunch of money came in. And it seems to have come in from this period. And Natasha kind of was there when it started. Now, she had a background in business, so she was kind of there to make the project money. And they had a plan. But then there was this thing that kind of fell from the sky, and it started making big money out of nowhere. And that's where Profundity Yours came from. That's where the nonprofit came from.
Yeah, I was the one. Yeah. At that time, Linda just kept telling everybody, because she had this group of 12 people. They're like her apostles. She says she would have 12 apostles. And, but none of them really ever did anything. But then Ryan and I show up, and because my personality is to get things done, I got things done. And so we started all the paperwork, we started business plans, started to create things, tried to get that website, awful website, tried to get her to change the design, but once she set on something, she's set. And I was constantly put down in the group at the same time because I was running things and controlling things, and that's like really wrong and really bad. It should be everyone deciding together, but my personality is just to run things and to get things done. So I had to work through a lot of guilt of knowing that, like, if we had not shown up, the ranch probably wouldn't have happened at all.
Well, it
so she
sounds
got
like
the
the ranch.
nonprofit.
I mean, the ranch, I think, was ultimately funded by Elvira, though, right?
Yeah, but Elvira and I worked together, and when I was there, we were all kind of wishy-washy. And it's actually Elvira. Elvira, yeah. She apparently, her brain has changed, but she was still like us, like where we all were kind of just on the outskirts, and she was really far away. And Linda worshipped her because she would give her $200 a week, and we're talking like Linda was very poor, like very poor. And so what happened, the first month we show up, she gets on a show with this Alexander Quinn, whatever his name is, this like famous galactic guy who has all these followers. And that first video gets like 150,000 views. And people are like, Linda, 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 Linda. But at the same time, Linda's heart has just been broken because Michelle left her. And that was the change when Linda's voice went like deep and dark. And that's when like she really actually started to openly show her abuse, and openly, and talk to people in horrific ways. She became very angry and very hostile, and was no longer hiding the racism, the misogyny, homophobe, like all of it. And then, I mean, honestly, Michelle left, and then all of a sudden, Linda goes from extremely broke working on donations and the $50 a month group, where she only had maybe 20 to 30 people paying, to now she's banking money. And so because she has never had money, she was spending it at the same rate as it came in. It was pretty interesting to watch because as somebody like in the past who I used to make money, like you just don't, we would go to Walmart and she would buy anything her eye looked at. Like new tent. Oh, I need a tent. I don't have a tent for camping. Or you know, like, oh, I want to get a stove. Or she would just buy everything because now she had all this money. And she never had ever in her life had money, right? And she had the money, like it was hers, and there was a lot of it in on her PayPal because everybody paid through PayPal. You couldn't say no. Don't buy a new, like you don't even sit outside. Don't buy an umbrella. Like you're just stop. Like stop spending all this money. Like we needed that money to help invest in the ranch, and she's spending it on shit. Like.
Yeah, I mean, I
person that's
wonder,
never
like,
had money would.
if it's connected to, like, where I guess this money, I mean, it's probably not being taxed.
Well, she was trying to hide it through PayPal, and then she was trying to figure out how to get it so it didn't. That's why we started the nonprofit so fast, so that it didn't go through her name, that it could be that money could be run through Profundity Yours, because she didn't want to pay taxes on any of it, and she didn't want to lose her disability, which was like $700 a month. Like I remember I kept saying, my husband and I would say, like, you're trying to go through all these loopholes to save $700. Like we'll give you the $700, Linda. Like we'll make sure your rent is paid. Like stop trying to
that
cheat
money
the
makes her
government.
feel safer than any other money because she's relied on it for such a long time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I get that. But we were trying to say, hey, like, people will pay your rent, okay? We'll pay your $650 a month. Like, don't worry about it. But she also was worried, you know, she's on disability. The money from the government is disability for having a psychotic break.
Are you sure?
So yes, I'm positive. This
Really?
is what she told me. She cannot work because of having a psychotic break and being in the hospital.
There's a lot of important information in there. And I'm going to go further into the nonprofit in the next video. But what's important is to remember like why we're here, and that the services rendered by the nonprofit are individual and group therapy sessions. And there is a big lie here that Linda's trying to hide. I mean, I think these videos have been scrubbed from the internet, and one was hanging out there. But I know just from talking to these people who were in Profundity that this is what Linda was doing. She was telling people she was a licensed psychologist.
One thing about counseling, because I used to be a licensed psychologist.
I mean, that's criminal, and the money has just like gotten so outrageous. I'm going to play one last clip, but I just want to say that I think that all these therapy sessions are on a hard drive somewhere on the ranch. Linda likes to tape all her sessions so she can go back and watch them later. Nobody watches more Linda than Linda. And I guess like I'm positive that they are going to delete anything if they see any signs of danger.
If for any of you that are interested in the course, I'll put the email there to where you can email and get information on it or whatever. And I appreciate all of you that are taking it. Truly, all goes to the nonprofit, and so we can build Emerald Sun Spirit Ranch, a community of lights for all of us that really only have ourselves and stuff like that. Any of you that feel free to, that would like to donate, we take donations to the nonprofit on the website too. Eventually we'll get enough and we'll get some land purchased, and my intention for creators is just to have someone donate us some land. So yes, please come join us, and so much love and blessings to you all. Truly, this is a legitimate $20 bill.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Do it with $5 if you need to. This
I
will
done.
help. This
Hey,
will,
guys.
this will help your low self-esteem.
Yeah.
How much you trust yourself. Here you go. On this $20 bill, I'm going to take this pen and I'm going to write you. Okay, I need a marker. This ain't working, Mariana. You
Okay.
no longer have nor hold any control.
Yep.
Nice.
You see it?
You know what
Oh,
I'm going to
wait.
do? And, you know, it's why I started the nonprofit. I have many people asking me to join their communities, that they can promote me to make 100,000 in 7 months and this and that. And everything I see in the spiritual, and this is probably the one thing that disheartens me more than anything, is spirituality has been turned into a money-making business. Healers and this and that, and they all charge money for their gifts. They charge money for their wisdom. And we're not here to do that. And for me, that's probably the most disheartening thing that I've experienced since I've walked in. You want to know why? Want to know why?
Yes.
Because money is what has enslaved you.
Mhm.
Really stop giving your power away to information. You really don't need it, because any information you need is right here.
Mhm.
And building that light in here is what's important. And I don't want you to go into shock and tell me how I could have spent the $20 on helping a homeless people. You'd be surprised at how much money I give away.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay,